Vibe coding professional front ends for your Airtable products can instantly 10x their value. Instead of showing customers that raw database interface, give them a clean, branded dashboard. In this video, I'll show you how to build custom dashboards with sorting, pagination, and inline editing that syncs with your Airtable data, then deploy it live. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is go to GitHub so we can create a new Git repository. This is where we can store all the code for the project that we're going to create. I'm going to go ahead and make this private. I'm going to call it the No Code Airtable SaaS. And the reason why I'm creating this repository is because it just allows us, once we generate the code that's going to create the front end for Airtable, we'll want to deploy it to the web just like this SaaS I'm building here. And this platform here called Vercel integrates with GitHub and makes that process super simple. You'll see how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and clone that repository. I'm going to copy the URL from here. And if you ever get stuck on any of this, you have these instructions here. If you don't even have Git installed, you can always just come up to ChatGPT and say, how do I install Git on a PC or Mac? It'll literally walk you through. It'll just take a second or two. I'm going to go to the terminal here and I'm going to go ahead and git clone and the new repository that I created. And then I'm going to go ahead and CD into that. No code Airtable SaaS. And if you're wondering why I'm not using Lovable or Replit or Bolt or one of these vibe coding platforms, it's just because I've found that Claude Code works a lot better and it's a lot faster. So now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to build out the front end, and I'm going to go ahead and use a prompt that I already created that helped me build this template for launching a SaaS product. I actually give this away in my new vibe coding community. Feel free to check it out, but I'll also link this prompt in the description below so that you can cut and paste it if you want to walk along through this video with me. Basically what it's doing is it's just setting up a SaaS product or getting you in a good position to build a SaaS product by building out this entire template here that has light and dark mode. It's all ready to go. It's got your navigation. It's mobile friendly. It's got your pricing built in. So it's nice just to start with a nice clean interface like this. So I'm going to grab this entire prompt. I'm going to jump into VS Code where I have Claude Code installed. I'm going to open up my project. We have the No Code Airtable SaaS. Open it up. It's a brand new project. It's an empty Git repository. Over here, I'm just going to open up Claude Code. I'm going to give it access to that folder. And I'm just going to paste in this prompt. And it's going to go ahead and get started and build everything out. Of course, it's going to ask a couple questions along the way. While it's doing that, I do want to point out that in this video, I'm going to use a library that is specifically designed to build tables in React. So one thing that I have found in the vibe coding space is that a lot of times when people are trying to build something, they want to give one prompt and get the entire solution. But the problem with that is that the AI ends up picking all of these different technologies. And if we're going to build something for Airtable, which is a database, and it has all of these built-in features where you can edit different rows and you've got select boxes and dates and all these different special field types. Well, if there is a framework that mimics this, then your application that you build is going to be a lot better than if you just have AI build you a table. It might pick a library or no library at all that renders the table, but maybe not as feature rich. So what I did a couple of weeks back when I was doing another project, I was looking through all the different JavaScript libraries that would allow me to build a table just like Airtable. And I found this one here, so we're going to use it. So let's check on our install here. It's asking us a couple questions. I'm going to hit Shift Tab so it auto accepts. Now it's still going to ask me some questions like when it's running commands on my computer. So we'll just have to step through this. It's going to go through all of these different steps here. It's initializing the code project. It's going to install some UI components so that we have nice buttons, and then we have all of these different icons and these different icons here. It's installing that as well. I'm just going to click through everything on this process and we'll come back when it's done. We shouldn't have any errors, and if we do, I'll stop and show you how I work through it. I also have it installing very common and popular frameworks for making everything look nice and the formatting. It's important to set up these projects the right way in the beginning so that they are built on a solid foundation. Now, one of the reasons I did start the Vibe Coders community was so that we could build out these SaaS platforms with payment and integrations and security and analytics and API management, just so that we wouldn't have to build all of this stuff out like we're doing here in this video from scratch every single time. I mean, how many times have people built out headers, footers, and navigation and integrated payment? Yes, we have AI, but we don't really want to start from scratch and have to build out all of these things every single time. So we're almost done here, and then we can test out our site, and then we can go ahead and start integrating Airtable. Now, one of the things that's really cool about this table framework is that it's a lot like Airtable. So it has checkboxes, you can do sorting, it has pagination, it's got a bunch of different field types. So depending on your project, you can really make your SaaS application or your front end for your automation feel like Airtable actually does, and you don't lose all that functionality. You can even do editing inline. It's worth checking out. You can take a look, and I think they have an editing example somewhere over here on the left-hand side. So here it's trying to run a git command, which I don't think we really need to issue at this point. So we have our SaaS framework, git status, git status. So we already have it. Actually, it was supposed to have built this in this directory here, so we'll fix that. I'll fix that on my own. I'm gonna go ahead and say no. And now I know how to start this application. So basically what it did is it installed this framework called Next.js. And it's a framework that deploys a front end and a back end server to power your SaaS application or your front end for your no-code tools. Once you have it installed, it's very easy to go to your command line and run so that you can access it from your local computer. So if I go into SaaS framework and I type npm install, that's the first thing that you have to run, npm run build. It's gonna build your application. And it looks like we have a couple of errors here. So we're just gonna take these errors, drop them back into Claude to get those fixed. Not uncommon to have a couple of errors, not a big deal. Now it's running a command just to check to see if it fixed everything. It's running another check on its own. Now it's gonna go ahead and rebuild it. And then if this runs, then I'll run it from the command line. So what's kind of cool is that Claude Code can actually execute commands as if you're in the terminal here, but sometimes I prefer to run it here because it's easier to start and stop. And it keeps doing this git init because it built the framework inside a subdirectory. It's already in a Git repository, it just doesn't know it. So I'm gonna go ahead and say no. And I'm just gonna get this running first. All right, so it's up and running. So now we can go here, come back to our browser and let's check it out. All right, so here's our new SaaS site. Interestingly enough, it looks very similar to the one I built before. It's always kind of interesting to see, like when you run the same prompt, like how close something gets to something that you ran before. And it includes that light dark mode, but notice how it's just a toggle. Whereas in this one, it's a full dropdown, which is just interesting to see how things change between runs of the same prompt. All right, so now that we have the front end built out that you can then use to build out your SaaS or your front end for your clients or however you're gonna use it, we can go ahead and build out the table framework that integrates with Airtable. Now, if you want to get access to this no-code Airtable SaaS that I'm generating here, make sure to jump into the no-code architects community. We'll drop it into the classroom inside the templates. And we've got a bunch of other courses and calls almost every single day and sometimes two. All right, so I think the next step here is to build in a simple integration with Airtable. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have Claude build us a new page. We'll just create it at /Airtable. The first thing that we'll do is we'll create a very simple page that's empty, that has a drop down that lets us select between all of our different bases that might be in our Airtable account. We'll try to mimic the features here where once you select a base, it'll have all of the tables at the top. And then when you select the table, it will show you the data within that table. So let's keep it simple to start and then we can add on to it. So I'm gonna jump back into Visual Studio here. And actually before I move on, I'm gonna fix this issue here. So I'm just gonna jump into Git. I'm gonna stop the server that was running our site. And I'm gonna move everything that's in here into the directory below. And I'm just gonna double check that it moved all the hidden files. And we see a few hidden files that it didn't move. So we're gonna go ahead and do move.next.github.ignore.github and .env local example, also to the previous directory. So now if I come here, we have all of that. And then I can remove that directory SaaS framework because we don't need it. And now I should be able to run dev from here. So now what we're gonna do is just talk to Claude. I'm gonna write out a prompt and tell it what we want to do, and then have it come up with a little plan, and then have it step through that plan step by step. I want to add Airtable integration into our application. I want to keep it simple at first making sure that we can make API calls, get the various bases within my account, and then we can build from there. Before we move on, the Airtable key should be stored in a .env var. We should create a simple page called Airtable, and on that page, we should have a select box that shows all of the bases that the key is able to access. So I'm going to create a key. I don't know that I'll give it access to every single base that I have, but I'll give it access to at least 2 so we can test the functionality. And I think that should be all that I need. Before we move on, the Airtable key should be placed. Does all that make sense, including my previous statement? So just do a quick confirmation there. So it created the to-do list. So while it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to Airtable and get my key. Come up here. I think we need to go to integrations. I always forget where to go. Account, API, go to the developer hub, personal access tokens, create a new token, YouTube demo, and we'll give it access to read, write. Just going to give it access to everything. That way it can read and write and get information about everything. Really, we're giving it more than it needs. Enterprise administration. Definitely don't need that. So those are the scopes. Then we'll add specific bases. I was building a YouTube analytics base, so I'll add that. So here we have all of the YouTube data that I was able to get from their API. Soon I'm going to create an entire SaaS from this. So make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you want to check out that project that's going to help you do YouTube research and create thumbnails and titles for videos. And then what's one other base that we can add into that? I had this project here, AI breaking news, so we can add that one as well. Add base. So I'll create that token. I'll copy this off to the side so I can use it later. I'll go ahead and click done. I'm going to jump back over to Claude Code. Of course, it was asking me for a question this whole time, so I'll go ahead and get past that. So it's got a sample environment file that it already has because I was going to set this up with Supabase, and so it's already got some things there, but we don't really need to worry about that. It's going to go ahead and install the libraries for Airtable. We'll go ahead and click through. So now it's creating our Airtable page with the bases select dropdown. Now it's adding in a package for select boxes. So then the only thing we're going to need to do, assuming it didn't create any bugs as it goes, is take our access key and drop it in the environment variable. So what's happening here is that there was some legacy information in there related to how we had it in a different directory, and it's basically figuring that out along the fly. So one thing I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm just going to stop it and just let it know what happened. So it's important to keep an eye on things. And if you do notice something, you might not always, but when you do, go ahead and let the AI know. So you can see, got it. Thanks for clarifying. So now it's able to figure things out properly. I think one of the biggest reasons why I see people get stuck when they do vibe coding is because they don't ask questions. They don't try to learn along the way. They only try to get the AI to do what they want with no discussion. So again, just clarifying the change I made. It's confusing it a little bit, but it'll make its way out. Oh, it looked like it actually created that folder back again. So before I finish up here, I'm just going to make sure we delete that to get it out of the project entirely. Actually, it's going to do that for us. That's why I love Claude Code so much. It's the best platform that I've come across. All right, so we already got the token. It wants us to add it to our env local file. Now, again, this has a bunch of other information in here because it was from the prompt that I used to create my SaaS application. We're not going to use any of that right now. In fact, I bet I can just create a new file, save it as .env.local, and we're going to put Airtable API key equals. So now let's jump back over to our test site, make sure it's still running. I might have stopped it here. Okay, it's still working, so I should be able to go to /Airtable, and here's our integration. Gave us some instructions, and here's our 2 bases. Cool. So now what I want to do is when you select a base, it looks like it's already got some stuff that it added here, continue with selected base. I don't really want to have to hit a button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, when I select a base, which is on change, load up all of the tables and display it along the top as Airtable normally would, and default to the first table, and then remove the other features here around the setup instructions. So let's just build that out first, step by step. Let's display all the tables below, much like Airtable would, horizontally. Remove the instructions and the button. Allow us to select the table to view, default to the first table, and create a viewable area for the data of that table. Now here's where I'm going to tell it not to actually display the data because I want to try to use that other library. Let's see if that other library works. Do not actually show any data or build any code. I just want to see this work first. Then we can swing back and show the Airtable data itself. So again, I like to build and vibe code in steps. I go a little bit slower, but that allows me to build out a stronger base and pick the technologies and make sure it does it the way I want. Because when you do it this way, your foundations will be so much stronger. I mean, how many times have I heard the story where somebody's vibe coding, they get 80% of the way there. It's pretty cool, but they can't finish this last 20%. And they just get stuck here and the AI just goes in loops. Well, it's because some decision was made here that just is impossible to fix. All right, so let's see what happened here. Let's go back to our app, got rid of all the instructions. Now let's go ahead and pick a table. All right, so now we've got the new tables, very cool. And does that match our actual database? Let's jump over AI breaking news. So we have news and feeds. All right, cool. All right, so now let's go ahead and see if we can integrate this React table plugin, which is called MUI X. I'm going to go ahead and just ask it to do a little research first and to let us know what it thinks. And I'm going to give it the site here. And basically what I want it to do is to dynamically review the Airtable data to look at the columns and even the column type and build an equivalent. Now, I don't know how that's going to work because there is some complications here. We've got like video fields and all that. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out. Maybe we'll have it start on the feeds table because it's more simple, but let's just see what it can do. The end goal would be to automatically analyze the Airtable base table and field types to create something similar with MUI X. However, I know there might be some difficulties with doing that. So if needed, we can keep it simple to start. Please do some research and technical analysis before proceeding. Come up with any questions you have and build a plan so that I can review before you start. So we'll go ahead and let it review the site. Now, I've never tried this before, so I don't know that it works, but let's give it a go. That's what I think is cool about vibe coding is that you can just try these things out. The best way to do it though is to go slow and ask it to do research. There's quite a few little technicalities to set these things up. And the more research it does and the fewer steps it does at any one time, the more successful that it will be. So it wants to continue doing some more research. It's going to go look at the quick start guide. Smart AI there. Now, the one thing I am worried about is that there's a lot of different Airtable field types, and I don't really want it to build out support for every single one of those in this demo because that could be a lot of work. So that's why I wanted it to come up with a plan before we move on. I can tell it to simplify if need be. And then we can add in specific support for certain column types as we go. So you can see here, it's getting a list of all of the column types. That could be a pretty massive job to support every single one of these, and to write all of the code for that might be difficult. But if we pick a specific table and we pick specific columns that we're going to use a lot, then we can go ahead and move forward with that. And then of course, over time, you could always build that in. There's a lot of these column types that we're just not going to use. So there's no point in wasting a bunch of AI credits on some of these field types, especially since some of them might be a little bit complicated. All right, so let's see what I came back with. Quite a bit of research here. So it has a few different versions. There's the community, free, premium, Airtable field types, 20 plus types, key technical challenges and considerations, field type, mapping, complexity. So again, here it's coming up with the exact same thing that I was worried about, is that there's a lot of different field types in Airtable. Linked records, formulas, data transformation, Airtable API returns nested objects for some field types. MUX expects flat structure. So there's a few technicalities to work out, all of which you could overcome with enough time. But when you're vibe coding, this is why I do it in steps. This is why I learn along the way so that I don't get myself into a situation. And lo and behold, check this out. Questions for you. Scope and budget, field type priority, exactly what we're talking about. Style preference, data limitations, editing. Do you want to be able to edit? Proposed implementation plan, basic integration. This is awesome. Install MUX data type, create API endpoint to fetch records, implement basic field types, text, number, date, checkbox, and select. That sounds like a good plan. Create data transformation, add styling, phase 2. This is perfect. Sounds good. Let's go with phase 1, keeping it super simple. If you see anything complicated that you didn't, feel free to stop and have a discussion. Okay, so before I go on, another thing that I'd like you to do as you build out these projects is that as you go through different phases here, we're at a good stopping point. We've got some good functionality built out here. What I recommend doing is coming back to your Git repository. I'm going to open up a new terminal here. It looks like there was an error here. We'll fix that in a second. Where I can do a git status. Need to go into the no code Airtable SaaS git status. Let's do a git add star, git status, do a git add git ignore, and we can do a git add dot GitHub. And then we'll do a git commit initial project build before MUI X. That way we can always go back if AI kind of goes down a rabbit hole. All right, so now let's jump back to Visual Studio. Sounds good. Let's go with phase one, keeping it super simple. In fact, if you see anything complicated, let's stop. Break this next phase into small steps and begin. It always amazes me the power of what we're doing here. I mean, the fact that we were able to even build this in just a few minutes is insane. I've grown up building software for my entire life. I started building software in the 80s, believe it or not. So I've seen everything in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010, and these kind of projects would take weeks. And we're just doing this in a few minutes. And that's why I encourage people to slow down. Like, we're doing something that used to take weeks and we're doing it in minutes. But the reason why people end up having additional troubles because they try to do it in seconds. They don't want to have any in-between steps. They don't want to have conversations. They don't want to learn along the way. But just learning that this library, the MUI X, even exists is a huge win, because if you didn't know this, then you might just build out some table that works, but won't have the powerful functionality that this can have when we get further down the road and build this out, because this will allow us to work just like Airtable. We can sort, paginate, edit inline, and really not lose the functionality of Airtable, but we can build it into our SaaS. This is where we need to be careful. I'm all for it. Handle all that for me, please. I always keep an eye on what's going on here. Even if I don't fully understand everything. I understand a lot, but there's a lot that I don't, but I'm always learning. I was never a front end guy in the first place. I was always more of a back end guy, server guy, building out deployments. It'd be interesting to see if it's already done. Looks like it's running into an error. I mean, would you want to fix that? I certainly don't. Now, the thing I'm wondering is like, okay, it only implemented certain field types. So what did it do with the other ones? Does that mean that it's just not going to work, or it's just going to like just display the data? Let's just see. All right, wants to rebuild it again. Let's give it a chance to do so. What we actually built is pretty complicated. So having a few errors is not uncommon. So it's just working through things on its own. It's figuring out that it's doing certain things before it should, or in the wrong order. So I was able to finish that build. Let's see what it actually looks like. So this was to compile the app, right? So this is kind of like server side. Now we actually have to run it in the browser, and let's see if there's any errors on that front. So here's what it did. I'm just going to come back, and I am seeing an error here, and it seems to be consistent. Actually, let's just take a look and see what's happening on server side. So we are getting a server error. That's not good. It's probably likely related to this. Getting a server error on the browser, and also this, and also this. Now, before I hit enter, I am going to come back and just see, is it only on my Airtable page, or is it everywhere? It's everywhere. The error is on all pages. So it looks like it's got a caching issue. All of these issues here would have taken hours and hours and hours to fix and figure out all on your own, if you could even do it. I'm confident that I could do it, but it would take me a long time. It's very tedious work, what's happening here. I might also stop the server. I probably should have done that before, so it got it completed. So now we can run it again. All right, let's see what we got. Loading Airtable bases. Let's pick our AI breaking news. We got the tables, loading the data. Wow, check that out, guys. That is insane. And look, it added the pagination, 10 rows. Look at that. That is insane. Error. Look, and we have sort. Not sure if the sort is actually working here. It wasn't working here because these are linked tables. Wow, this is insane. The sorting is working. Go over to the feed. Okay, we got an error here. Okay, so here I can just come over here and copy that. So I'm going to say no here because I ran that command. So I'm going to say no. Okay, working pretty well. One table loaded without issue. The sorting, pagination worked, but when I went to the next table, I got an error. I'm going to cut and paste that error, let it chew on that. Actually, what I should have done here, so it looks like it figured out it's the dates. So it's just going to fix that for us. I should have checked everything in because we had a pretty successful build there. So it looks like it fixed everything. So let's see. Go to AI breaking news, go back to feeds. Okay, there we go, it works. So you're gonna see some weird stuff that we need to figure out. For the news, these are linked records. So in Airtable, our hidden fields here, it's this field here, which is linked to the news table here. And so we've got all of these linked records. So it's not gonna render those perfectly. So what you're actually seeing on the SaaS side is the actual Airtable record ID instead of what it shows in Airtable. So there's a few things to work out. I think this active is supposed to be a checkbox. Let's bring this over here. Active, yeah, it's a checkbox. All right, very cool. And then one thing I just noticed here, guys, is that there's these 3 boxes here. So you can sort, filter, you can actually manage columns. So if you want to hide certain columns, it automatically does that for you, which is super cool. I want to change something in the formatting here just so that we don't have this scroll bar and it's just controlled by the rows per page. So I'm going to come back here. Please allow the table to grow without a vertical scroll bar. And then I'll say leave the horizontal. So we've got the thumbnail here, which is coming back as an object. It'd be cool if we could actually display the thumbnail. On Airtable attachment fields, assuming only one attachment is there and it's an image, can we display that image? I believe it's an array of objects with a URL. So you can see here it has special cases for different types of fields and it was just returning the actual value. So now it's going to return the image. Let's run a type check. Looks like it ran into an error. It's got to fix that. It's going to run the build again. And we'll go ahead and restart everything once it's done. So this is what I recommend when you build out something like this, is that instead of trying to build out all of the functionality, you just build out the ones that you need the most, and you can always come back. We've got an open video link here that we might want to implement as well. All right, it says it's done. I'm gonna go ahead and rerun the system. We'll refresh the page. We'll go to the YouTube analytics, loading the videos. So it looks like the thumbnails are still coming back as objects, which is not what we wanted. I have a thumbnail column that is not being rendered. Perhaps the case statement that you added is wrong. Not sure. Can you check to see why it's still just rendering the object? If you need any debugging data, let me know. So what I told it to do is to go ahead and, if it needs to figure something out, let me know, and I'm happy to help it debug it. YouTube analytics. I'm not seeing the debug data. I'm just going to npm run build myself. Let's see, we got an error here. So let's go feed that back. So let's run the site. So we're still just getting that object. It wanted to know that. And I don't see any other debug data. So it wants me to go to the dev tools. So we'll just hit F12, go to the console log. Here's what I see on the web. And here is the console. So it was using the wrong case statement. So I had happened to see it building this. So you saw me earlier saying, did you use the wrong case statement? It guessed at what the name of the field was, but it's called multiple attachments when it comes back from the API. There we go. There's our thumbnails. Awesome. And then if we wanted to make this look nicer, since we don't need to see all of these columns here, we could go to manage. Looks like you can actually control that. That's amazing. That's awesome. That is so cool. So now the one thing that we might want to do is we had this open video button. Let's get that to work as well. But perhaps the easiest way to actually deal with that is we have a URL. We should just make a button from that. Let's try and make our buttons work if possible. The button contains a URL that we'd like to render as a button that opens the URL. I'm going to check and see if there's something in the console here now that I can send it. If I hide the column, does it do anything? I'm just seeing if I can send it some data ahead of time. Oh, got to get that back. Manage columns. Currently, it's just rendering an object. Let me know if you need any debugging data. found an error on its own here. So it looks like it was able to get that. Let's see if it works. That's awesome. Very cool. All right, so now let's try one more feature that's built into the MUI X table platform, which is the ability to edit fields inline. I think this would be pretty cool to do so that we can simulate what it would be like to work in Airtable. Because one of the nice things about Airtable is that, yes, it's a table, but you can edit everything inline. It doesn't have to pop up some modal window to do that editing. So let's go ahead and jump back into Claude Code. I opened up a new Claude Code window just to start over and get a fresh start. Now I'd like to test the inline editing feature of MUI X on text-based fields. Can you help me test this so that we can edit the field and it will update the Airtable row on the backend? Can we keep this simple so that it doesn't get overly complex? So it's going to explore the current setup because we just restarted the Claude Code session. All right, so it says it found it. Let's go ahead and let it proceed. Now it's moving on to add some code. Go ahead and move forward. Now it's going to implement the inline editing for just text fields. So you can see here in the code, we're adding an is editable field. So what it's doing is it's going to all the other fields and saying that they're not editable. So again, Airtable is pretty complex. So the way you would edit specific fields is going to vary depending on what it is. So when you actually implement this solution, there's going to be a slightly different way to edit each of these different types of fields, like a thumbnail. So I'm just starting off with something simple to start. I've been pretty impressed with how easy this process has been. I really see this era as the builder's dream, because if you're a builder, it's never been easier. All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can update something here. So I just double clicked into the box, which is pretty cool. And if I remove something here, beginners, so I basically removed the end of it. So now let's go see if it updated inside of Airtable. So this is learn N8N automations in 16 minutes. Here that is right here. So let's just do a search, learn N8N. So that's right here. Okay, cool. It looks like it did update. Yep. So we can see right there just a couple seconds ago, it made the inline edit. So that's really cool. That's really powerful and super easy to do. So now basically we have a complete Airtable replica in our SaaS application. Now, the next thing we need to do is to commit all of these changes and then deploy it to Vercel. So I'm going to come into our Git repo here, do a git status, git add, star, git status. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit everything, commit added editable fields, git push origin main. Now I'm going to jump into a platform called Vercel, and you can deploy this for free. You don't have to have a paid account. Create a new project. Now I already have this linked up with my GitHub repository. If you don't, they'll have some instructions here on how to connect that. So I'm going to go ahead and select this repository. Let me just make sure I have my recent changes in here. And we do. So we'll go ahead and import this project. Make sure you pick the Next.js framework and we'll deploy. Now, the only thing I just realized is I didn't put the environment variable. So I'm going to cancel the deployment and just add that in now. API key, and then the key itself. Now we can deploy it. You can check out the logs as you build. And what's nice about the way Vercel works is that it's designed to work with these Next.js apps. It can pull it right from your GitHub repository, just like you saw. And when you make further changes to your app and you push those into GitHub, it will automatically redeploy and your site will always be up to date. All right, looks live, so we can check it out. Here it is. Got our light and dark mode. We can go to /Airtable. We already put in our API key, so everything loads right up. Here it is. We can make our changes, edit, jump back to Airtable, and there it is. Awesome. Now, if you want to get access to this Next.js app and code that we went ahead and built out on this video that will help you connect up your no-code Airtable database to a SaaS, or so that you can build out an interface for your client automations, make sure to jump into the no-code architects community. You'll find it inside the classroom with an AI automation business course, an N8N quick start guide, and a make course, and a bunch of other N8N and make templates. It's an engaged group, and we promise to solve 100% of all of our members' tech issues. I'd love to see you inside the group. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.